With the election in Virginia for a new governor coming closer and closer, and knowing that Terry McAuliffe already was a governor from 2014 to 2018, I was really interested in looking back and seeing what he accomplished during that time period to see, is he worth actually being governor again? And here's what I found with my basic research. So, Terry McAuliffe became the Democratic nominee on April 2nd of 2013, and in his election, he got 47.8% of the vote compared to the Republican getting 45.2% of the vote and the rest going third party. One of the first aspects of Terry McAuliffe's governorship that I want to cover is what he did in terms of social policies. Upon becoming governor, amongst his first executive orders was one that actually banned discrimination against state employees on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Pretty great, but he goes a lot further than that. Terry McAuliffe actually had some of the highest amount of vetoes ever for a Virginia governor at 120. The vast majority of these blocked Republican legislator attempts to discriminate against LGBT and women's rights. Specifically, Terry McAuliffe defended women's right to have an abortion. This was 2014 to 2018. I know it's like not even that long ago, but these things were not nearly as accepted as they are now, and they're contentious even now. So, really impressive stuff. Aside from that, Terry McAuliffe would go on to give voting rights to released felons, and by the end of his term, over 150,000 released felons got the rights to actually vote again. Some people would criticize this based on them being felons. However, I would always argue that restricting rights to vote for certain groups of people is a very dangerous thing, as that is their participation in government and how they can try and make a say in something. And if they can't do that anymore, then they don't really have rights, as they can always be stripped away. A very dangerous thing to try and do that. So, I support this wholeheartedly. Terry McAuliffe also would increase education spending by $1 billion, largely focused on pre to 12. Pretty great. He cut many standardized tests in order to try and find better new methods in order to actually test student achievement. All great stuff. And of course, I have to talk about one of the social issues that everyone talks about, and that's guns. Terry McAuliffe supports universal background checks. He tried to take away guns, or he wants to also as well, from domestic abusers and require state police to attend gun shows to provide background checks upon request for private sellers, and take away guns from parents who are behind on child support payments, like more dangerous individuals. He did actually compromise with Republicans, allowing for interstate holder concealed carry. And the last thing that he really wants to do, and maybe that would come up more if he actually wins governorship or during one of the upcoming debates, and that's his position that he wants to ban assault weapons. And that's largely his position on guns. Overall, pretty respectable, pretty good. Now, the aspect of Terry McAuliffe's governorship that he's really proud of, or I guess the most proud of, is what he did for the economy. Throughout his term as governor, there was $20 billion new dollars in new capital investment. For those of you that don't know, capital investment is companies spending more money in obtaining assets and expanding their business. So that's a lot, especially considering that's more than $6 billion than any of his predecessors in terms of capital investment during a term as governor. To put that in another way, there was 1,100 new economic development projects, with 71% expanding existing businesses. To expand on that, he had 200,000 new jobs created as in his term as governor, and he participated in 35 trade missions across 5 continents in more than 24 countries. Really impressive stuff. Aside from that, I guess to give even more specifics, he got Amazon's second headquarters to go in Virginia in 2018. He got multiple brewing companies to go to Roanoke and Richmond, and a Virginia Tech research expansion in Roanoke and Eldercore and Butler County. Just so many examples of that. Now, to move on, for the environment, Terry McAuliffe grew solar jobs by 65%, in 2016 alone. And throughout his entire term as governor, he would increase the solar energy production by nearly 8,000%. And He also got Virginia to abide by the Paris Climate Accords. Terry McAuliffe's legacy is not perfect, however. For those economic incentives and the $20 billion in new capital investment, of that, a company called Lindenberg, they were trying to be enticed to move to Appomattox County and create hundreds of jobs there. Yet that was a failure and a waste of $1 million. I mean, not really much compared to $20 billion, but that was a failure, and I wanted to acknowledge that. Aside from that, he wasn't a great compromiser at trying to get through healthcare, as the state senate, once it turned Republican, there was just no compromise that could happen there. So that is a failure. And aside from that, he also is told pretty much just lies on some of his accomplishments, such as saying they inherited a $2.4 billion deficit from a Republican previous governor, and that he fixed that completely. However, that's not really the truth. There was a reduction in the amount of tax wealth that began late into the last governor's term, and a deficit and revenue shortfall did happen, yet it wasn't really that governor's fault, and it did continue into McAuliffe's term, and he was forced to cut spending and balance the budget and use rainy day funds, so it's not really inheriting a $2.4 billion budget deficit. That was just something that was happening anyways. He also takes full credit for expanding Virginia's economy, and he did a lot of work there, and that $20 billion in new capital investment is very impressive, and a lot of that is due to him. However, throughout the U.S., the GDP was just growing massively, and Virginia's growth was definitely going to increase regardless of who was going to be governor. So not all of it should necessarily be attributed to him, as he likes to claim. So I wanted to end this off with some recognitions and other positions that he held in his term as governor. In 2014, he was appointed to the Council of Governors by President Obama, and in 2016, he was named Governor of the Year by the Biotech Innovation Org. And what that is the largest trade organization in the world for biotech. That's pretty impressive. And of course, as I mentioned in a previous video in that Glenn Youngkin attack ad, he was the chairman of the NGA, at least during 2017. It's a pretty impressive legacy there. Now, of course, I could just keep going on and on and on, but as you can see, research on these videos takes a lot, and this is just a really basic overview. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I will leave sources in the description.